we'll get halfway through and I'll be like, oops. So as I'm listening to this, if you guys want to put what county you're in the chat, and if you have a livestock sale, that'd be great. There's some names on here that I'm not familiar with, and I don't know, Holly and Amy, you may be too. Some fairly new educators on here that I'm not 100% sure where you're at. Right, what are we at? All right, I'm gonna go ahead and get started. It's 10:02. We'll still let people come on in as they come in. I'll watch the chat on that. So thank you guys all for joining us. Excited about this series that we have coming. This three-part series that I'm working with our livestock committee to put together. We're pretty excited to bring this information to you guys. These are questions that we're continually getting, whether it's me at the state office or some of these educators that have been seasonal and have done the livestock sale over the several years, or most recently, Amy's is not that old. It's fairly new. But just excited to have Holly and Amy that'll come in and do a presentation for us and kind of talk about their livestock sale. This is going to be a great opportunity for you guys to ask questions, interact. So we definitely have built in some time for lots of questions, and we're here to learn from each other. Every county, you'll notice as we go through this and as the questions come up, will be different, a little bit different, a lot of similarities, but there will also be some differences between county to county as we talk with that. So Holly and Amy, do you just want to introduce yourselves and then we'll...
Sure. So I'm Amy Pira. I'm from Ontario County. I have been a 4-H educator for 17 years, but came to Ontario County 2 years ago, which was right when we started the livestock auction program. Holly, do you want to introduce yourselves and then I'll go into about our program?
Sure. So I'm Holly Harwood. I'm here in Wyoming County. I've been here for just over 15 years now, working with our 4-H livestock programs here in our county program.
Very good.
So previously I was a 4-H educator in Wayne County and I was a parent here in Ontario County. So I approached our educator, Sarah Wilhelm, and said, hey, there's some other 4-H some other parents that are interested in forming a livestock auction. What do you think? And she was like, yeah, that sounds great. So I started as a parent on our committee. We started in 2020, just kind of getting feelers out, engaging some of our parents. It was 6 parents and Sarah. So I'm going to actually walk you guys through what our process was to get started. Our first auction was in 2022. So we formed our committee, and these were some of the questions that we asked in forming with the committee. Our extension our ED and other board members weren't super excited about us having a livestock auction. And so they really put the task to us that it needed to be educational and not necessarily a moneymaker for the kids. So we put a lot of thought into how it was going to work. So Sarah was really helpful in coming up with some really great questions that helped us think through how we were going to structure the program. We decided that our auction was only going to be 4-H only, so we don't have FFA as part of it, or no other youth organizations. We sell beef, dairy steers, which we currently run together. Hogs, we do both turkeys and chicken. We do rabbits and we do meat goats. We thought we'd have about 18 kids, which is, we actually ended up with 19 kids. One of the things that I think was important for us when we got started was the fact that all the parents were involved in different pieces of the agriculture industry. And we put a lot of thought into the other people that we brought onto our committee and how they could be beneficial to the auction program. And my number one advice for anyone that's getting started with an auction program is I have one auction member that does not have any kids in our program, and she is my go-to person at the county fair because she's not trying to manage kids. She doesn't have any kids that are selling in the auction. She is my right hand. Hey, I need waters taken here. Hey, go grab the microphone. She's just there to be an extra set of hands, as opposed to all the other committee members do have kids that are participating in the program. So I think that that's really helpful to us. Holly, if you want to click to the next slide. We sell all of our animals, our poultry is sold butchered. All the other animals are sold live, including our rabbits. Our rabbits, we have a choice that they can either take them home as pets, or we do have a butcher date set up for them with a processor. To this day, we haven't had anyone that's actually sent any of the rabbits to be butchered. But this year, I have a huge number of kids raising rabbits, so I'm assuming that we will end up having some that will experience that piece of the auction. Because we were tasked with having it educational, we do have a pretty rigid schedule that the kids have to follow to make sure that it is being educational, and it's working well right now. Our auction is ran by the Canandaigua Stockyards, which is the local sale barn here. They are super supportive of our program and always willing to help. Our first year, they completely ran the sale for us. They did all the bidder numbers. They, auctioned off the animals. They checked everybody out. This year, I had our CCE staff helped with the checkout process. And I think this year that we will probably do more of the checkout process just to help things flow a little bit easier. They don't have enough staff that they can man the booth and checking out at the same time. And as our numbers have grown, we found that we need more people at the table to check out. We do a buyer's dinner also at the end of or at the beginning. First year we did it at the beginning of our sale. And then last year we did a buyer's reception where we just had snacks in our sale arena, but it was like 100 degrees on the night of our sale, and the cheese was like melted into the plate tray that we had. So we're re-looking at how we're going to handle that piece, but we thought that that was important to be able to feed our buyers and thank them for coming. Because we're small, we started off small, we still are small compared to Wyoming counties. There's this huge compared to ours. We were able to get Farm Bureau to actually sponsor our dinner for us, which was nice. We also have community support from our other ag organizations. Pretty much all the banks support our sale by donating money for the buyers dinner, buyers gifts, and anything else that we need to make our auction function. So that's been super helpful. So What else? We run our sale by, Holly, if we want to switch to the next. We determined the way that our sale was going to run. We sell our champions first. We start our sale by selling the largest animals and going down to the smallest animals, but we sell all champions first. So beef, hogs, lambs, goats, champion poultry, and then champion rabbits. And then we move into the species, selling in that same order. So all beef sells first, starting with the reserve champion. And then I thought it was the most fair to just go in alphabetical order from there, because we did not have our judge place out the sale order. So we just sell them right in alphabetical order based on the kids' last names. That seemed to have worked for us for now. And then anything that is being donated back, which was something we weren't expecting our first year, but we had a buyer that purchased a steer and then he donated it back. The first year we ran it right into the sale, like he donated it back, we auctioned it right back off. Last year, we ended up holding all donated lots back and auctioned them off at the end of the sale, which was a suggestion from actually an onlooker of the sale, just so that all the kids had a fair shake of selling all their animals first before those donated lots were sent back, to make sure that everyone was getting a fair price for their animals. Like I said, these are just kind of some notes about how our auction was running when we were doing the planning phase. Any questions so far?
Do you guys find any trouble by auctioning off your champions first? We don't do it that way in our county. And did you like see any loss of buyers like after that? Did they leave, or just curious?
No, actually, it's yesterday I was actually doing math to figure out our averages and such. I'll be honest, the kids that get that actually probably, our champions do well. Some of them were the top of their species, but also some of the kids that were the very last animals to sell actually brought the most money. So, no, people don't usually leave when we sell the champions, they stay. Yeah, my last rabbit that sold actually was the highest selling of the rabbits. And probably if I averaged it out per pound, we would see that he made the most money per pound. Okay, Holly, if you switch to the next one, I'll talk about our mandatory meetings. So the kids are required to come to all the meetings, unless they have had a pre-approval to not make a meeting. We usually let them miss one meeting if it's been pre-approved. Stomach bugs, we don't want the germs to come. We have allowed a few kids to Zoom in depending on their circumstances for the meeting, but I strongly encourage that everybody comes so that everyone is getting all the same information, and at the same time they are forming relationships with not only the other kids that are participating in our program, but also my committee members. We have our committee members, I have them set up so we have a kind of superintendent for each species. And then I have 2 at-large members, and then myself as a staff person. So at the end of each of our meetings, the kids go and meet with their species superintendent so that they can just have conversations about, hey, do you know where you're going to get your hogs from this year? How are your hogs growing? Do you need me to come take a look at them? All those sorts of things, so that they're forming that relationship with the adults and also the other kids and families. So we started off by doing 3 at-large meetings. This year we actually added a 4th at-large meeting. We do an initial meeting in the fall. So all 4-H all youth that are participating have to be enrolled by October 15th to participate. And they have to commit to which species that they're selling. Our rule is that they can sell 2 species and they can sell 1 animal of each of those 2 species. So they can sell a hog and a steer, they can sell a chicken, and they can sell a rabbit. but so we do an initial meeting in the fall. And this year, we also will incorporate some sort of quality assurance meeting. This year, we're actually going to tour a local vet office, and she's actually going to do quality assurance with the kids. We have a marketing meeting, which we have a really close relationship with Seedway, and they are bringing in their marketing team to work with the kids on how to market their animals. And then we just do a final check-in at the end of right in this, usually in late June, because our fair is at the end of July. And just check in with everyone, see how they are doing getting their buyers. And then we do 2 species specific meetings, usually some sort of feeding workshop and or care workshop. And then they do a showmanship fair prep clinic. These are our auction statistics. So in 2022, we had 19 youth that sold, and we sold 26 lots. In 2023, we had 31 kids that participated in 38 lots. For 2024, I'm looking at about 52 lots, I think is what we're auctioning off, and 46 kids, I think it is, that are participating. We have really tremendous support in our community. Our auction committee has done a really great job of making those initial connections within our community. And they're not all ag community businesses that come and sponsor. But I have really tasked our committee members to go out there and just talk to people in the community and let them know about the auction and set it up for our kids to be able to come in and talk and make their sales pitch. For our buyers, the last 2 years have required them to send 10 letters to businesses per species that they're selling. So if they're selling 2 species, they have to do at least 20. They have to turn in who they're sending them to. And then I followed up with either in-person visits or mailing out buyers packets to all the buyers. But last year I ended up sending out like 250 buyers packets. The kids didn't always have all the addresses right on them. So we're looking at some different options, and I actually am excited to chat with everybody and see how everyone else also handles your buyers and knowing who the kids are getting for potential buyers. Our thought actually is that we're going to have the kids hand deliver the buyer packets to their top 5 buyers this year. And save on our postage, since postage went up even more now. These are our general rules that they participated in. I touched on a few of them. They do have to submit a record book. And we do have weight requirements, which I'm happy to share. I didn't put that in our presentation. Majority of my rules are the same as Holly's. I copied hers because Wyoming County has done such a great job of outlining what they expect of everybody. So I didn't reinvent the wheel. One thing that we did outline more this year. Last year we had someone that wanted to do a specific donation lot. She wanted to donate half of her proceeds to an organization. Her grandfather had passed away from cancer. And so we just felt like we needed to have a better handle on how we handled the donation lots. So we put together some guidelines of how we're going to handle them, that they have to tell us when they sign up that they're going to do some donation lots, which I actually have 2 lots that we'll be auctioning off this year for donations. And that 100% of their proceeds need to go to the charity, so that we can advertise it really well for them, because it's exciting that the youth want to do that. And that it counts as one of their species that they're selling. So some logistics, we offer add-ons for our buyers. So if a buyer doesn't want to buy an entire animal, they are your next door neighbor, they just want to be able to give you $50, they can come and make that donation right at the auction, but still participate in the auction and check it out. We do have a couple 4-H sponsors that come every year and they donate $100 to all the kids that are participating, because they don't want to put a whole pig in their freezer. So that's nice. So the kids get additional funds. We do take a percentage. We take a 3% commission for the kids selling their animals in the auction, but we don't take any commission out of their add-ons. And basically the add-ons usually cover at least the commission that we take out of them. We only take cash or check currently, because we run everything through the office here. I did have to put some guidelines last year on if you're buying it for a business and then you have to get your check. We had a feed salesman that purchased a animal from us, and it took us 40 days to get the check from the feed company. So I did put some guidelines on how long you have to get the check to us. So that's, oh, for our processors, we set up for the processors, every animal that's going through the auction has a processing date. Some people choose to take their animals home and to their own processors. So that's a list of who we use for our processing. They've all been really fantastic to work with. So that's about our auction.
All right, so I'll jump in here in Wyoming County. Like Amy and Brian had said, our auction has been around for quite some time. So I actually started in looking back 1969. So we're well up over 50 years worth of our 4-H meat animal auction. And ours actually started out in the true carcass program. So the kids raised their animals, then they were judged live, processed, and then judged on the rail. And so that's how it started again back in 1969. And went that way up until like the early to mid 2000s, when we ended up having to switch over to all live shows and a live auction. Because of the sheer size of our program, our local processors couldn't accommodate our on the rail program anymore, which actually was kind of sad for us. So anyone who is starting up programs, if you have the opportunity to do like carcass evaluation portions or rail programs that you can incorporate in, I'd encourage that. Our committee, our group was very sad when we had to stop those things. We did use some ultrasound scanning for a few years as a transition, but we found with that it was difficult for us again with the sheer number of animals that we had to find people that could use that technology. We were pulling people in from Pennsylvania and Ohio to come and ultrasound scan for meat quality purposes for us for that. But that's kind of a fun, this is our first sale brochure back from 1969. So our committee, our group, our program, our livestock auction is overseen by an advisory committee and myself. So we try to have at least 2 members from each of our species. Our species currently are beef, dairy beef, swine, lambs, poultry, and that's it. We don't do rabbits in our program. We haven't really had a lot of requests for that yet. Rabbits seem to be more of a pet care project in our county, so we haven't dove into that, or turkeys yet. But again, we try to have at least 2 people from like each species on our advisory committee. We also try to do, like Amy had mentioned, like industry representatives. So I always try to have a veterinarian on our livestock advisory committee so that we have some of that technical expertise and such at our hands. Another thing that we do is also have youth team members on our committee to oversee things. So we select 1 or 2 youth from each of the species. They serve 2-year terms on our committee, and then they rotate off because again, we have so many kids that are participating. We want to get as many of them, some hands-on experience in trying to, help run and steer the program. As far as our auction program, we sell all of our animals live except for our poultry. Those we show ahead of time. The first few years that we did poultry, we showed them at the fair and sold them live. Didn't go well. The market birds, they're ready for market at that point. So we do those ahead of the fair. And we don't have this facility space to house them either at our fair. As far as processors and processing goes for our fair, we work with, it's probably about, I think it's about 6 different local processors that take the animals for us. I coordinate with all of the processors each year. I reach out to them early spring as soon as we know what our numbers are. Reach out to them and say, here, this is what we're facing this year. Are you guys set for that? So far, we've been very fortunate with that, that they are able to handle all of the animals and that they haven't put limits on us as to what they will or won't take from us. I also follow up with them. We provide all of our buyers a pricing sheet for the processor so that they can see all of those charges that they will find, because a lot of people, when they come to these type of auctions, don't realize that after you purchase the animal, you're going to have additional expenses after that, that you have to, if you're getting the animal processed, that's additional on top of the animal purchase. Our auctioneers, again, we're very fortunate here that we have a local group of auctioneers, one auction company, and then some independent people who all volunteer their time and efforts for us. We've been able to work with them on that volunteer basis because we do all of the legwork for them. So all they have to do is walk in that day, do their thing of auctioneering, and we take care of on our side between volunteers in our office, all of the registration. We run the auction program through our computers and everything. So they just have to call bids and it makes it easier for them. So when it comes to running an organization and such, again, that comes all from our office, mostly myself and my administrative assistant. We do all of the setup. We make up all the buyers' numbers. Again, we have a program for our system, for our program that we run specifically for our auction. Auction details and such. So for ours, we run ours, we have a very specific schedule that our auction follows. So we always start out with at the last 2 years, we start out with our smaller animals. So we start out with poultry and meat goats, which I think I forgot earlier. Then we run in through with our pigs, which is our largest amount of animals, and keep the same species order throughout the auction every year. The only thing we flip-flop is we rotate our beef and our dairy beef back and forth every other year. But it's still, that the beef will always sell last. And that gives our crowd that comes an idea. They pretty much know after coming the first year what to expect each year. We start our sale. We actually are in the middle of the week. It's a Wednesday night. We start at 5 p.m. And between the auctioneers and myself, we have a goal that by 9 o'clock, the last animal will have walked through the ring and it will be wrapped up. So people pretty much know where they're at and what they can and can't do. We don't, as far as like minimums and things like that, we never set an actual floor or anything on our animals. My belief in this is an auction is an auction. You get what you put into it. Sometimes there's surprises. But so we don't set floors. We do have individuals that sometimes take it upon themselves to set floors, but they're completely doing that on their own. Like this last year, I could see there was a gentleman to the left of me that he put a floor of, it was $7 a pound for each pig. that went through the ring, and he made sure that they hit that, and once they hit that, they were on their own. But again, we don't set any of that up, keeping it the true fashion of like a good old fashioned auction. If families want, they can buy their animals back, but again, that's totally up to them. If they do, they're gonna pay pay for it, and then the kid would lose that commission. We do charge a 5% commission on our animals that go through the ring, does come from the youth, in addition to the checkoff fees and such that we do pay to the checkoff organizations nationally. Resale options, so we do allow buyers to donate animals back, but we have it set up that there's one way that they can do it. If they donate animals back, the proceeds from the resales go back to the 4-H program. And we have a scholarship program that we set up probably 6 or 7 years ago. So any donated animals go back into our resale program, and the proceeds from that go back to the kids at the end of their career, in their 4-H career, in the form of scholarships. We don't do add-ons. We don't advertise for add-ons. And once in a while, we'll have someone, when they go to pay, could we add on to this child's amount, and we'll allow that. But we don't solicit them or actually encourage them, figuring that most of the kids are doing pretty well anyway. So that's just one more thing for us to have to deal with. So we have not encouraged that yet. As far as a buyer dinner, we offer, our fair is set up a little bit different, where we don't have a food stand at our fair, and can't provide food for our buyers in the barn areas. So we provide them, our fair has a restaurant where they sell beef on weck dinners. So we provide anyone who has purchased animals in the last 3 years, we provide them tickets for dinner. So we give them 2 dinner tickets so they can go have a roast beef sandwich, which is pretty popular at our fair, and then come back over to the auction. And those are all paid for out of the kids' commissions that we hold in our livestock fund balance. For our auction requirements, we only allow our youth, again, because of the numbers, they can sell 1 species. So at the beginning of the project time period, you could actually register different species, but by June 1st, you have to let me know in our program what species you're actually going to move through the project with for the auction. And you can only sell 1 particular species. In all of those species, there is lambs and goats. You can sell 2 animals. It's just always been that way. We're actually looking at maybe adjusting that, because we've had a real explosion in lamb population the last year. So we're gonna see where that goes. But again, you get to sell 1 animal and only 1 species. So when you look at our numbers here in a minute, we're looking at, like, we have 89 pigs, that's 89 kids, 50 beef kids. So we end up having roughly between 185 and 200 youth participating in our program. We do have minimum weights, weigh-ins, all of those type of things. Our program, if you want, our rules and regulations are all on our website. And later on today, I'll see if we can get posted like some of our auction like terms and conditions and that kind of stuff from last year on our website. So it's easy for anyone that wants to look at those things, or just email me if you want any documents sent to you. I can send you any of our stuff. Buyer procurement, I rely on the families to do this. We do send out buyers packets, again, to the previous 2 or 3 years worth of buyers that have information. We do a buyer like sell sheets as to the packer information. I have a frequently asked questions sheet that we send out to the buyers. But as far as soliciting buyers for the auction, again, I go with the philosophy of it's the kids, it's the families, like it's your job to go out and solicit buyers or people to be interested in the auction. One thing that I always tell the kids are, you never know, again, because it's an auction, what's going to end up happening. But what you need to do is reach out to potential bidders that then become buyers of your projects. So, the program, all of those type of things, again, our office, ends up producing all of those things. It's all pretty much real time. We, show the animals one day, get all of our results tabulated. Our program is based off of, or the auction order is based off of the points system. So you have to, you accumulate points the entire project year. And so we get all of that tallied up, and by the end of it, our auction program each year is probably about 45 pages long by the time we get all of that done. So we take care of all of that on our end. And again, if you want to look at the point system and that kind of stuff, that is all in our rules that I have online. The only thing, the major requirements that we have for our program is we do require each participant to do that national YQCA program, the Youth for the Quality Care of Animals program. We do, we actually offer most of it online because I have found that the kids, actually, it's much more engaging for them to do that process online. We offer each individual a voucher so that they can pay for it. Again, that comes out of the youth commissions from the auction. So we'll give them the coupon to take that course. They have to show me their certificate that they completed the program. And then beyond that, they have to do one of our approved educational events. So those are all in-house meetings that can everything that you guys do for meetings. So selection, we do skill-a-thons, tours, we do marketing meetings each year, showmanship clinics, the whole 9 yards. Because again, we're looking at close to 200 kids. They have to do one meeting. I cap it for points, for our point system, I cap it at 2 meetings. You can come to as many meetings as you want, but I don't want 200 kids showing up to every meeting just to collect points. So I cap their bonuses at 1 additional meeting. Those are our requirements for coming to events. Here you can see, this is over the last, since 2020. I keep a real nice spreadsheet of our auction. So this is my spreadsheet that covers, because there's a lot of years hidden. So this is 2001 up to 2023 of all of our averages. So we track all of our animals by species, by dollars per pound, the number of animals, the whole 9 yards. These are like the big gross sale numbers. You can see that in 2019, we actually were about 225,000 on our auction. 2020 was a completely virtual remote auction done online. The numbers kind of plummeted on that, but we also had a little bit lower participation there. And then right after the COVID year, we jumped right back up to, you can see this year, our gross totals for that. But again, there's big numbers there, but our focus at the end of the day is again on the educational value and components of the projects. And you can see there the numbers of the animals. So pretty much except for the lambs and the goats, that's true individual youth numbers too. So we do have a good size of that. As far as our rules and regulations, we have different enrollment dates, which can sometimes be confusing for people, but what we found is that people were waiting until last minute to enroll for any of these projects. So several years ago, we made it so that if you're returning to our program, you have to be enrolled by November 30th. I got tired of people handing me enrollments like at weigh-in when we're tagging pigs and saying like, oh yeah, we're back for another year. So we do have those. Again, the kids can only do 1 species for our auction program. You can still have market animals. You can still have breeding animals of any species that you want. But for the auction program, we do limit because we don't have any more size or space or capacity at our fairgrounds. We do require record sheets from all of our auction participants. It's a very simple front and back page. The front is all calculations and the backside is all questions, trying to get a little bit of, thoughts out of the kids. Each year I do switch up the questions. When I started, I realized that my predecessor had used the same sheets for the last many years. And so kids would keep their sheets and just photocopy them or resubmit them. So we change up the questions every year and ask them different things so that we can start different conversations. Some of them actually end up revolving around some of our educational events. Last items to go over quickly is, again, we don't do the add-ons in our county trucking. Again, we have a lot of animals, but we do have, all of our trucking is volunteer based. So I have a group of people from our committee that at the end of the auction, the end of the night, we coordinate all of the trucking to processors. We do have enough animals that our processors do ask us. We do hold mostly beef animals. I have one gentleman on our committee that has the ability to hold a good portion of our beef animals for anywhere from a few days up to a week or two at his facility until the processors can handle those. He and I we have that worked out, but into that, leading up to that, we also do carry for our county an umbrella insurance policy. Again, that goes back many years before me. That a volunteer on our committee set up this insurance policy where we insure all of our market animals for the month of August. For the gross sales total the previous year, so that if we end up somehow losing a truckload of hogs or a truckload of steers, that would put our sale under and we wouldn't know what to do. So we do have an insurance policy for that, and we've never used it, thankfully, knock on wood. And we also do carry a sizable fund balance here in our association through those commissions in case we ever have to potentially replace an animal or, pay for losses somewhere. We do accept credit card sales. We just started that probably about 2 or 3 years ago. This last year, we actually, I think the total, we had $33,000 in credit card sales that night. People were super excited to be able to utilize that. And all of that is, again, in our terms and conditions, which if you guys want copies of what we use, I can definitely provide them to you. So that's all I've got on ours. Obviously, here's Amy's and my contact information. And so, Brian, I don't know if you want to open it up to questions.
Yeah,
in the chat.
I was going to go through some of the questions that are in the chat to start with. So the first one Carmen asks is, generally, how far the processors from your fair, right? Are the processors for your meat from your fairgrounds?
So for us, it's actually, we're pretty lucky. I think ours are actually, I think, all in county except for one. So we're very fortunate on that we have several local processors.
And are yours USDA or state?
A mix of both. Okay. And so we, on their sheets, I let the processors choose to tell people like what their levels of, inspection are.
So we don't have any processing facilities in county. So ours are, one is an hour and a half away and the other two are about 45 minutes away from us. Ours are all USDA.
Okay. The next question, I'm guessing it's Omicron. Holly, could you share the variety of questions you use on your record sheets? What kind of questions are on your record sheets?
Yeah, actually, so they're very simple questions. And they're actually, our record sheet, I think for this year is on our website. So again, if you go to our website and find 4-H Livestock, you can see the entire record sheet there, they're posted. But a lot of them, I start out with very easy ones. What was your favorite memory this year? This is my favorite answer to read from all of the kids, because you get a wide variety. And then I will ask them questions as to like a certain topic, like what is quality assurance? What does it mean to you in the program? The one standard question every year that I ask the kids is they have to research the market price for their species at the time of the auction, and then determine based off of that market price, like what would you have made if you actually received 45 cents a pound for your pig? And so would you have profited or lost at that actual market price? And the standard answer is always like, wow, I would have lost a lot of money. So it gives that real life, real world scenario to it.
Yeah. The next question from Michelle is, does everyone sell per pound or per head?
Go ahead, Amy.
We sell per pound except for the rabbits and chickens, they're per head or per lot, because we sell both of them in pairs.
Yeah, ours
In
is exactly the same.
turkeys,
So
we sell singular though.
So one of the things that we discovered this past year, so Broom, I ran that for about 10 years when we started it. Our auctioneer actually suggested to switch the goats to per head also because they weren't getting the prices that everybody else was. So we are actually looking to try that this year too. Again, ours is not to the level Amy and Holly's is as far as prices. We don't have the infrastructure here, but so we're gonna try to do the goats per head this year also.
So we actually, Brian, we sold per head to start out with. And when we did that, the goats didn't average very well at all. When we switched to per pound and people were looking at those in comparison to like the lambs and the others, the dollar amounts jumped. And the kids got probably twice what they had been getting.
Yeah,
it's an interesting take.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this goes. But we did sell the turkeys this year by head, and it actually doubled the price this year for our turkeys.
Hmm.
So our turkeys went from about $200 a head, an animal, down up to about 500 by selling it per head versus per pound. It was kind of a shocker on that. So that's questions I want to open. I have other questions, just kind of keep the conversation going. Michelle just asked, as far as scales on the ground, how do you guys deal with scales, weights? And I guess that's another question to kind of go in the whole weigh-in, and some weigh in before fair and tag them. They do a group weigh-in, a couple months ahead versus just weighing in at the fair to start with.
So we have actually just recently bought scales as part of our auction funds. So we weigh in, we have our scales right at the fairgrounds, both for our initial weigh-ins and then obviously the fair weigh-ins.
And what do you do with initial weigh-ins? Can you talk about that, Amy?
Yep. So for steers, we weigh in first part of December, and then our lambs, hogs, and goats, we weigh in April. And we don't track any of their gains or anything like that, but we weigh them in and we tag them. Eventually, we've discussed tracking average daily gains, and so that the kids can follow along with that. But we're just getting started. So really working out all the kinks and everything, we felt like we should do it slow.
Yeah, so we similarly, we have initial weigh-ins where we weigh all the animals and we tag them with our program tags. We do track rate of gain is actually, you have to meet a minimum rate of gain for all of our species except for poultry to actually qualify for our auction. Our scales are certified at least once a year by our county weights and measures. Usually because the certification is good for 1 year on those, I will have them checked right before our fair. And so we do run our animals across. We have a small animal scale that we do the lambs, the goats, and the pigs on. And then we have a large one that we run our beef animals across. Ours are digital. We used to have the weigh bar, like the older fashioned weigh bar scales. The digital ones don't have any wiggle room. So if our weight limit for pigs is 225 on the minimum side and your pig weighs 223 pounds, the scale says 223 pounds. And so we are very strict again because of the numbers of animals that we have, very strict on those. And that's why we use certified scales for that.
I'm gonna go back to the questions. Sorry. I'm running too many chats at one time, I guess. So how do you handle tagging market animals? Do you have your own tags that are specifically to your county? And plus, and they don't count, and I guess I would definitely say on top of this, your county tags do not count towards your CAVI tags, right? Your certificate of veterinary inspection, you still need to have your 840 tags or your official tags when you're looking at the tags on that.
So we tag in with the 840 tags. I do have a few here in case a seller didn't put them in an animal's ear. But that's becoming even more of a less of a thing because pretty much everyone is putting them in their animals when they sell them now. We have had discussion about making some cool tags that say Ontario County 4-H auction animal in them, but it wouldn't have the numbers in them, obviously. And actually, the committee is having conversation about getting an RFID reader to help with the trying to read pigs' ear tags when you're leaning over the scales at weigh-ins.
Yeah, so
Go ahead.
we do both. So I do have RFID tags, the 840 tags. Sometimes if you reach out to the states, they will still send you some of those 840 tags if you need them as backup. And then I order all of my tags for all of my species through Premier. It's a sheep company. They do custom tags. They're very fairly priced and they hold up well. So I use small ones. If you want specifics on them, I think it's like 7X is the large ones that we use for our cattle. And then this might be 5X or something like that we use for the small animals. Again, you can get them custom made. So ours say Wyoming County 4-H, and then we have a 3-digit code system that we follow through with all of our numbers. You can get them in multiple colors. So we'll switch up colors every once in a while on the kids just to keep them fresh. But that's how we ID all of ours.
So Kyle, you back on here? Do you want to ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, awesome. So I brought this up with the livestock advisory too, but so our auction, and I believe Rensselaer, you might be in the same boat as us. We're the last day of our county fair, which is the second week of state fair, and it's on Labor Day. So we're battling a holiday weekend. And we have our youth solicit as part of their record books for their market projects, and they have to go to at least 3 businesses that are not family members in the community. And that needs to be documented when they turn that in to be in the auction. However, we're noticing that even though they're going and talking to these businesses, the day of the auction comes and most of these people are not showing up still. So I'm trying to figure out a system where we can make this more follow through. But I think we're battling most people that aren't at county fair on Labor Day weekend are on vacation and they're not planning to come to a county fair to do this, but they might still want to support. So you have like a form or like a system for proxy bidding that we could possibly like utilize to try to get that connection going.
So we don't have that. The last few years, the auction company that we do work with, they have provided us an online auction format also. So you can follow ours the day of online and bid online. To be honest with you though, that hasn't worked out really well for us. There are maybe 2 or 3 successful online bidders or online buyers for our auction. So it's a lot of work for me, honestly. So I'm hoping to actually end that this year. We do have it set up that if people want to do proxy bids, they can contact, someone from our livestock committee, or they'll reach out to the auctioneers themselves. But again, I think we're at the advantage of being established that people will reach out to others and they'll do the bidding for them.
Okay.
Same with us. They can reach out to a committee member, and we actually put that in our literature, that they can contact somebody if they need to do a phone bid and work out those arrangements with a committee member.
Okay.
So Kyle, in Broome, when I was doing it in Broome, and I know they still do it, we have a bid sheet that kids can actually take. It's actually part of the buyer's packet that we actually take The kids can have it signed off, and then they bring it to a staff person. It talks about how much they're willing to spend, how much, and then we usually have one of our committee members that is running the proxy bids and bidding right along for that person. We actually have sold probably, I would say, a quarter to a third of our sale every year is with a proxy bid, using that sheets
Okay.
on that. And we have, and you know, it's to say in a written contract, but I'm sure it won't stand up in the court. But we have never had a problem with getting paid with that, right? People are pretty committed, and actually it's worked well with businesses that are interested on that. And and I'll tell you, that's where a lot of our donations actually come from. They will bid through a proxy bid and actually just donate it back.
So do you
Yeah.
invoice them after the kids, like they put down that form?
Yeah,
that-
our association then invoices them
Okay,
for that.
okay.
Yeah.
That
was
might be the
important.
most user friendly for us because I know internet wise on our fairgrounds is not friendly of any sorts because we don't have internet. And if you try to use 5G or 4G during fair, your phone doesn't work. So this might be do you have that form?
Yeah, I do have it. Yeah, so just let me know. And
Okay.
I'm more than willing to send it out. So either myself or Linnea can send it out. Linnea's not, she had another meeting today, but she was going to be on for that also. But yeah, we actually stole that from Tioga County. They have done it.
Okay.
And we, again, don't reinvent the wheel. And most of us that
Mhm.
have it will be more than willing to share what we have to save you guys time. Emma, do you worry about someone switching out animals? How do you handle losing tags?
So we, again, when our animals leave, the initial weigh-in, they've got 2 tags in their ears, the RFID and the program tag. And so, there's just a blanket policy in our program. If your animal loses one or other of those tags, you have to contact me ASAP, and then I will get them new tags, so they can do that. So generally, they'll have one or the other still in their ear that you can ID them with. With pigs, you can always write down lots of times the notches and such. We've actually given up on notches because some of them are so ridiculous to read that it's not super reliable. Could they cheat the system and the animals both lose both of their tags at the exact same time? Yeah, but you have to really want to cheat to do that. So I'm not too worried about that.
Good.
Same with us. I had a pig that ripped out their RFID tag, so I mean I trusted the family, so we just went out and did it. I knew that they weren't gonna go out and buy another animal, so it really hasn't been an issue for us.
Yeah, I would. So we were much smaller, and I'm just going to share this. We didn't do a pre-weigh-in, so the kids had to send their tags in by May 10th, I think it is, with a certificate where it talks about the number of their animals when they purchased it, right, and the tag number of that animal. And then we don't do a weigh-in until county fair, so that's actually our first weigh-in is county fair. But again, we're only dealing with 4 pigs, like 3 sheep, 3 goats, right? So we've got a total of 20 animals versus the 200. So, it's setting it up the way you feel comfortable and grow, right? Like our goal is to eventually grow to the point that we will be there in Broome when we did that. Buyer's gifts. Amy, you talked about buyer's gifts, I think. Do you want to share what you've done for buyer's gifts? Because that is something that I'm seeing more and more discussion across the state.
So we do 2 different things. One is that the kids each have to provide a buyer's gift to their buyer, and it could be something like we have a young lady that every year makes apple pies and gives to her buyer. My son usually does a basket with a cutting board. We tell them to think about how much their buyer's spending. Someone that's buying a chicken, maybe an apple pie is probably fine. Someone that's buying a steer, maybe something that's a little bit more cost appropriate. But we also, as an auction committee, all the kids go and take their picture. We have a photographer that we work with. She donates her time. They go and take their picture with their buyer. We have a little flag that they hold. And then our committee has purchased buyer picture frames that we donate, that they follow up with to their buyers with a handwritten thank you note that they have submitted to me prior to them getting their check, and their picture frame that has their picture in it, and then they hand deliver that to their buyer a couple weeks after the auction.
Very good.
Yeah, so
Other-
we
Go ahead, Alex.
we do each buyer for every animal, we do these little placards. We buy these, I think, from Fair Publishing. Again, get them customized. Ours is actually in the shape of our county. That is a supporter. So these have become like a real thing where you go to businesses and you'll see them like stacked across from the years. Because we date them for each year. We get little stickers so that it designates what year they are. As far as buyer gifts, I actually tell my kids that that buyers gifts are very optional. My philosophy is that these buyers are there to support you. Some people, you can do buyers gifts. We don't mandate it. Sometimes it gets to be a little bit, at least at our fair, it seems like it gets to be a little bit of a crazy show of who's when it comes to the buyer's gifts. And so I try to actually shy away from those, because the ones that's a little bit harder for them to do those type of things, you could just see the kids, like their faces are like, oh, I don't really have anything to do. But the one thing that I like drive home is, you can buy gifts, you can do all these things. The one thing that is mandatory and you really need to do is like the handwritten thank you notes. That means more than, a plate of cookies or the things like my kids, and we will do things, but I'm kind of busy fair week. So my husband forgets to give the gifts to the buyers. It ends up months later. It's a whole thing. And at the time, like they're very appreciative that we're doing it, but they're not buying to get a gift in return. Another thing in our local area, kids spend a lot of money on penny saver ads too, to thank buyers and individuals. And I've heard from some of the buyers who are like, I wish the kids, like, we're giving them this money. I'm not asking for it back from them. It's nice, but it's not necessary. So I think that like in our area, there's really no good answer to buyer's gifts. Whatever your heart feels, whatever you can do.
This is the frame that we gave this year. Sorry, my background's blurred, so I think it's making it blurred. But they were really nice.
Good.
And they're displayed in lots of businesses that have visited.
So I think one of the things that we did, so I agreed, like thank you notes was one of the things that we did in Broome is thank you notes. We actually hold their checks until they give us the thank you notes, and then we mail the thank you notes out for the kids on that. So that's one of the requirements. We actually had one kid that refused to do a thank you note. We actually held their check for 60 days, and the parents like, thank you. We've been telling this kid they got to do a thank you note, right? And because it's something they want to do every year, right? And the thank you note is required. It's like their final hurrah that they have to do to finish their project for the year. Other questions from the group? Don't be afraid. This is the opportunity. Or if anybody has other input, some of the stuff that you've done in your county. So I know there's some other experts on this call that have been doing the sales for a long time on that.
Brian, I just got one that was directly to me about sheep, lambs. Lambs have the scrapie tag. They don't have 840 tags. They have scrapie tags. In our program, we actually require, because again, sheep are not supposed to leave their home farm without that scrapie tag ID. We've had a little bit of issues with that the last few years. Farmers not realizing that they needed to be part of that scrapie program. So that's one that if kids do lose those tags on their animals, I can't provide those. I can't help them out. They have to go back to the farm of origin to be able to take care of those. And so again, that scrapie tag is super important to reach out and have people understand that program before they get going on a project.
Yep. And one of the things that we've done with our kids is we've encouraged the kids to apply for their scrapie tags anyway, because they're free. Right, and some of them will have them because some of them are some of them will have their animals just so they have them. And I know it's not probably the best way to do it, but just in case. Other questions that you have? What ID requirements do you have for rabbits and poultry? So that's actually a great question. How do you ID your poultry? Specifically go to the processor, because we in Broome have tried several different ways, and it's a continuation learning.
So our rabbits have their tattoos in them, and they actually do that at one of their meetings, the showmanship meeting. And our poultry, I'm really open to listening to what other people do because that it was a thing this year about whether or not some birds that may have been attacked by a dog, if they were actually the birds that we provided, or if they were the ones that got attacked were actually purchased at Runnings. We didn't have a way to say, nope, those are not our birds. So I'm open for suggestions on that. But when they come to the show before they go to the processor, every kid has their own color of a zip tie, and we put a zip tie on their leg when they go to the processor. So that's helpful. But when they come as the chicks, so we purchase all of our birds together. The kids let us know how many birds that they want to raise, and so it all comes in the same order. So they're not getting their own birds to raise for the auction. So open to suggestions on what you guys also do for requirements for the poultry.
So sorry, didn't raise my hand, but so one thing that we do, because we do a similar thing, we offer all of our meat birds, the ducks, the chickens, the turkeys, all through our office. We toe punch, and we have a system of toe punching, so that we can figure out if they came from our batch or not. There's many different ways. There's a chart out there with different patterns you can do to identify, and you can switch it up from year to year what toe punch you're going to use, and it's just a little thing that you can get, I think, for like less than $10. And then that can at least tell you if it's something that originated from your group, or at least help to do that. It's not fully foolproof, but it does assist. And then we have a volunteer that helps with the banding when they actually coop in at the beginning of fair. And just because we have multiple sometimes in the same coop, so there's an additional banding to help identify. He has a color-coded system, and he makes a chart, and it's very pretty and complex, but he understands it, so it helps.
So what we've done in Broome is we actually buy the leg bands, the plastic leg bands that we actually put on. So we'll have all in pen one. So we'll have a pen of chicken. So we call it pen one, and we will actually permanent marker on the leg bands on that. And then, so that pen, all three of them in that pen. So we sell ours, the chickens by a pen of three, right? So all three of them will be a leg band pen one, and then the next pen will be leg band two, and that actually is how the processor gets them through also, and they actually can keep the bands right with the chickens as they're going through the whole processing facility. Also, that's how we've done ours, both chickens and turkeys. Obviously, there's different sizes, but I will tell you, some of the chickens, by the time they come through, have as big of a leg as a turkey does. The rabbits, we haven't. This is the first year Broome is actually doing rabbits, so that's good to hear. Other ways anybody else has done chickens or rabbits on how you've done that?
So I put it in the chat. I apologize, I'm sick. So I figured that was easiest. But we previously did a zip tie system. So each kid had their own color zip tie, and then every bird that they had, because they can enter, a meat pen, a roaster, a fryer, blah, blah, blah. Each individual bird also had its own color. So every bird had at least 2 zip ties on its leg. And they had those zip ties, when they came to the fair. So we zip tied them at the fair. We do order all of the birds together, just like pretty much everyone else does. But we had an issue last year. A bird lost a band, and we were pretty sure that it was switched out, but we had no way to really be able to tell. So because of that, we're moving to a 4 increment zip tie plan. So the chicks will be tagged when they go to the kids' houses. So they'll get a custom colored zip tie that has some kind of wording on it. And then each increment will be a different color and will have different wording, and they will be only switched out by advisory members. So that will be new for us this year, and we're hoping that that will combat the issue of possibly having birds switched out. But time will tell.
At some point, and it is tough if you're in this program, right? At some point, you have to put the trust in the families, right? Like it's there's just something you can't be there 24/7, and you can't because a cheater's going to cheat. Let's be honest, we know this, right? And that you're going to find that all the way through the system. You can only put so much in, and make sure you're dealing with that, right? So, like Emma said, you're hoping, right? You're hoping it's going to work, but there's probably a way around it, right? Somehow, some way, but who knows? Somebody will find a way. Other questions that you guys might have? So Victoria just said that, Victoria, do you want to unmute and ask?
Sure. Our county is still selling our chickens processed. They seem to go higher for us, but our advisory committee doesn't love all the work that they do behind the scenes to get those birds processed. I'm brand new to Chenango County, on this side, on the CCE side. I grew up here, but they said it's like a 3-day process to get these birds processed before the sale. So they end up missing like their child show on those other days. But they also are afraid that the higher premium will get lost if we go back to selling live birds. Does anybody else sell processed birds at their sale?
So we do, and our poultry auction market show is a few weeks prior to the fair, and then they're
Okay.
processed and then frozen until our auction. So they actually don't have birds to exhibit at the fair.
Yeah, ours is set up the same way, and we do it a few weeks in advance so that that's all taken care of. But that is the only reason why we can do that is because our processor works and does all that for us. We drop off the birds at his place, and the next time we see them is in a styrofoam cooler that he brings them back to the fair the day of the auction for us. So when he retires, I don't know what we'll do.
Same, because I think we use the same one.
We do, we do. And he's not providing birds this year, which is a whole new element, so
Oh,
we are sourcing our own this year. So,
Surprise, Amy.
surprise, I better get on my committee member.
he's still processing, but if he hasn't called you, definitely call and talk to him.
Okay, I'll put that on my to-do list.
Yes.
So I would definitely just on the birds and the birds and the turkey. So if you are finding your own and you're purchasing your own as a group, it definitely takes time to order beforehand, right? Like for us, our turkeys, we need to order and have them here by the end of March so that they're big enough for our county fair in July. And I think they're 16, 17 weeks at some point in there. And we had to order back in December in order to get the turkeys that we need for the program. So it's not something you can wait for 2 weeks before, especially since post-COVID. Getting these meat birds and turkeys is definitely taking a considerable more amount of time and juggling to do that. So just to think about that if that is something you're looking to move forward to. So Emma just said we show and sell them live at the fair, but prices go ridiculously high, but we have had issues with chickens dying at the fair due to heat stress. So we sell ours in Broome actually live too. We actually sold them when the flu was going around, bird influenza was going around. We sold them frozen on that. They didn't sell nearly as well as our live birds do for some reason. So it's interesting to hear from one county to the next and how different ones sell from one thing to the next.
Literally next door counties.
Yeah. Right. So
the way that we combat the because we will have birds that succumb to the day at our show, we have our youth, they can exhibit and sell a pair of chickens. When they come to our show, which again is before the fair, they have to bring 2 pairs of birds that day. One pair is like their show and hopeful sale pair. All 4 of those birds go to the processor that day. So our processor, actually, he will take the best out of that 4. So it might not necessarily be like the grand champion chicken that ends up being, but they were all raised together. These meat birds are all pretty much, they're all the same genetics. So you're getting a good pair still so that we can get these kids a sale pair. And that way we have that option. Then with our program, what we've done the last few years is the extra birds. The kids go into this program. We purchase 2 extra birds for each child from the program, and they raise them. And so these extra birds stay at the processor, and then our program actually donates them to our local community food banks and charitable organizations. And so that's a give back program that our poultry kids are doing by donating back those extra chickens, and then they don't have to go back to the processor and pick up 2 chickens the next day. So that's something extra that we do. And I know, I'm pretty sure we stole that idea from Erie.
We do the same thing, stole it from you guys.
Thanks, Erie County.
And I will tell you, so it's definitely, they are unique. And this is one thing, Amy and Holly, you know, they're unique in the fact that they have the processors up there, right? That are willing to work, right? Our processor can barely handle 50 birds a day, right? So the extras is not something that we're able to do here in our area. So that's the one thing to remember is it's what your processor is in your location and what they're able to handle. So comparing yourself to them, it can be, I always say I listen to Amy or Holly and their prices, and for my personally, I'm like, wow, that's crazy. And then you go out to the Midwest or Texas and they're selling for $200,000 an animal, right? Or they get Grand Champion market steer and they're getting a trailer for the year to use. So it's all, you know, just think about it as, you know, where you're at and where you're at in your county on that. So one of the questions that I have, and I think some of you talked about this, and we actually talked a little bit about this at our livestock committee last week at the very end. I think Holly and Amy, you were off the call at that point. I think we were in person. And how do you deal when the animals are donated back, right? So if the animal is donated back and then it sells again and then it's donated back again, so that kid did a lot of work. Who gets the funding, right? I think Holly, you said it all goes back to 4-H, correct?
Correct, yes.
And Amy, where are you at?
Same with us. It all goes back to 4-H after it's donated back.
And I'm trying to remember, somebody was in the meeting and they said the 70, so some counties do, the second time it's sold, 75% goes to the kid and 25% goes to 4-H. The next time it's sold, 50% goes to 4-H, to the kid, and 50 to 4-H. And the 4th time, which has happened, all goes to 4-H. Right. So I will share, we had that issue in our own county this past year. We had somebody sell 2 kids, sell the same family. They brought 8 buyers. The buyers got upset because they didn't realize that the money wasn't going to 4-H, even though we specifically said, right, it was going back. So that is a discussion that we're having in our own county of where do we do donations back. Does anybody else have any other things that where are you as far as donations? If it does get resold, and how you're doing, is it all going back to 4-H? So Taylor has in there a Texan here. She said, where are our poultry suppliers? Who do you guys use for poultry? I think everybody, there's a handful up here in the Northeast. Who do you guys use?
Are you referring to like where you get your chicks from?
Chicks, yep, is my guess.
We use Town Line in Michigan for the turkeys. They usually do a pretty good job.
Okay, cool. And they just ship them to you?
Yep. I think it was like, and we get the beaks trimmed when they're hatched. So it's a little extra, but I believe it was $8 a poult or $8.50 a poult when we ordered last year. And I think we have one of our volunteers runs a feed store, so we go through her to order the meat birds and the meat ducks, and I think she goes directly through Cackle.
Very good. Any other questions? So any other burning questions out there? But definitely if you've got questions or if you need Riley, just
Sorry. I have a question. So, we had a lot of complaints that, so backstory, I grew up like in the market auction and we always did when the buyback sell again, that money goes to like the market auction program. Well, our county is we don't have support like any Western New York's auction does. So we are having the problem of like a grandma buying the animal and they want to sell it, donate it back, but the kids and their parents are basically complaining that they're not getting the second funding or the second sale price. So we did 50-50, but it's kind of not fair to those kids who don't have an animal, sold again. So I don't know like a reasoning to tell them why it all goes to us, kind of. I don't know if that makes sense, but
No, it does. And again, I think I've got advantage because ours has had set up precedents for so long that some people don't really question it. It's just how it is. And we have it set up in our terms and conditions and all that stuff and state all those things at the beginning. And so we haven't had those struggles. What we struggle with more is if kids want to or families want to donate their animals to something, we have taken the line so far as to we don't get involved in it. Because sometimes in the past, when we did get involved in it, it got to be quite a show and an explosion of chaos. So if people want to donate, the proceeds or part of the proceeds for something, we have them speak directly to the auctioneer that's next up in the line to auction off animals. And if they want to give them a note, we don't get in the middle of that. All of our checks go to the kids. And if they want to then donate things, be above and beyond that, we don't get mixed up in all of that. Because again, with the sheer number that we have, the logistics of tracking all of it would be kind of a nightmare.
So Riley, our first year when the steer was donated back at our sale, the auctioneer actually just took it upon himself to be like, and all these proceeds are going to go to 4-H. So we just really rolled with it. And then last year, I actually had the auctioneer, I wrote out like, thank you for our people that donated the animals back last year. This is what your donations paid for, which were our new scales. It paid for some pig pens for us. We actually were able to donate some. The Fair Board built us a new pig barn. So I was able to say like, this is what your donations did for the program. And the gentleman that donated it back this year, he donated a lamb back for us, but he actually goes to the coffee shop with my dad and he was like, oh, I'm so proud that my donation back bought the scales. So I think really letting them know what they're donating back for and how it's benefiting the program is helpful.
okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? So there's a lot of discussion going on about the chickens. So just going to let a lot of those go through as far as recommendations of where they're getting them from, how to order them. Caitlin, do you want to ask your question?
It wasn't a question, it was a comment about the donate backs. How I've seen it worded a few places is that once a youth sells that animal, it's no longer the youth's animal or property, however you want to look at it. So it's the buyers. And then when the buyer donates it back, they can't really donate it back to the youth. They're donating it to the program. So if per se that donate back doesn't sell, unfortunately, it's on the program at that point to do something with it. But then that's how you can justify the proceeds not going to the families, but going to the program to be used in general funding, like what we talked about for supplies or education, bringing in a speaker or whatever. So it's just that clear discussion of like, once that animal is sold the first time from that youth, the youth no longer owns that animal, if that makes sense.
Very good.
That's a really good way of phrasing that.
Yeah, that was great. Any other questions? So I think we're about out of time. So I will be putting this up on YouTube, is the plan. I'm working with Courtney at the state office to put this up on YouTube. So I think there was a lot of great information on that. And I think, I did open it just to educators this time, but I think if we do put it up on YouTube, there may be some, I think, committee people that might actually be interested in hearing some of this stuff also on that. So feel free to share it as needed. If you have any information, if you're looking for some of the documents that Holly or Amy shared or whoever, don't be afraid to reach out to them. And I'm sure they'll be more than willing to share. Or you guys can, if you want to just willing to share it right across to the list that I sent out, the email, you can do that too, so that everybody gets it. So all right. Well, thank you guys. I think the next one is actually the next one in this series is February 6th. And we're trying to do this series, and the next one is February 6th, and that will be programs that at the state level that your kids can be involved in, and talking about chickens, or the livestock skill-a-thon, or the poultry judging, or the poultry science competition, or poultry bowl, those type of things that we don't have a lot of turnout for, but is a great opportunity for these kids that are in the livestock program to take to the next level. So Debbie and I are actually presenting on that on February 6th. So we thank you guys all for joining us, and huge thank you to Amy and Holly for presenting, and I appreciate you.
Hey, Brian.
Yes, Riley.
Sorry, for the livestock summit tonight, would we be able to sit in on that just to kind of